This happened only a few months ago. I was working the night shift at a small urban hospital. I had been a nurse for over 10 years, so night shifts were whole routine. I focused on my patients and often skipped breaks to keep everything running smoothly. But one particular night changed everything. The hospital was quiet. The dim lighting made long shadows stretch down the hall. I walked through the echoing corridors, checking on patients. Most nights, I felt confident. But that night, as I approached room 307, everything shifted. That I opened the door to check on my patient. But the bed was empty. I felt a chill creep through me. I could be sworn I had checked on him just an hour before. A faint rustling came from the closet. I froze for a moment, feeling something was off. I moved carefully toward the closet and pulled the door open. It was completely empty. I stared in confusion. Maybe I misremembered. Maybe he'd been discharged without my knowledge. Around midnight, things got even stranger. I was at the nurse's station when a patient called out in panic from down the hall. He said he saw a figure standing in the corner of his room. I rushed to him, heart pounding, but when I got there, no one was there. I tried to reassure him. I told him it was probably just a trick of the light. He looked at me, eyes wide, but I could tell he didn't believe me. The next night, I thought it was all behind me. I was doing my rounds when I heard soft murmurs echoing down the hall. My instincts kicked in. It was late, and I shouldn't be hearing voices. I felt uneasy. I followed the sound, but when I turned the corner, the hallway was empty. My heart raced as I walked back to the nurse's station. I decided to check the security footage. What I saw made my blood run cold. Doors opened by themselves. Cabinet doors swung wide. I couldn't believe what I was watching. By the third night, my anxiety was through the roof. The patients were more restless, calling for me more often. I approached one of the rooms and heard a voice whisper my name. I whipped around, but no one was there. My heart pounded. I felt cold sweat creeping down my back. I looked frantically, but the hallway felt endless, filled with shadows that seemed to close in on me. I tried to convince myself it was all exhaustion. Maybe my mind was just playing tricks. But those incidents kept gnawing at me. A few nights later, I heard that voice again, clearer this time, whispering my name, right in my ear. I felt my stomach drop. I turned around so fast it made me dizzy, but there was nobody there. At that moment, I wanted to scream. The hospital felt like a labyrinth designed to confuse me. I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me as I faced those haunting, unanswered questions. What was happening in my hospital? And why did room 307 keep replaying in my mind? I still don't know what happened those nights. But the echoes in those quiet halls still haunt me. The next night, I clocked in with a lingering sense of dread. I had told myself I needed to work through it, but the chills never really faded. I made my rounds with my heart in my throat, every creak of the building making me jump. One thing was clear, I was on edge. Around 11:30 p.m., I went to grab my coffee. The break room felt oddly cold, the air heavy. That was when I saw a flicker of light from the end of the hall. I was alone, so it made no sense. I grabbed a flashlight and approached cautiously. There, in the dim light, shadows shifted. My palms were sweaty, and I hesitated. Was I heading towards a ghost or just my imagination? I reached the source of the light. It was coming from room 307. My breath caught in my throat. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a sliver of darkness. I pushed it wide open, and as the light extinguished, the room felt suffocatingly still. I didn't know why I felt compelled to step inside, but I did. The space was barren, no sign of my patient. The bed was neatly made, and yet a sense of unease washed over me. Suddenly, I heard the soft sound again, the whisper of my name. Nurse, it echoed, chilling me to the bone. I spun around, flashlight shaking in my grip. In the far corner, I spotted something that made my heart race. A reflection. It flickered in the dark. I stepped closer, peering into the shadows, but nothing was there. Just my own wide-eyed, terrified face staring back. As I backed away, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, my pulse quickening. I rattled the handle, panic rising when it wouldn't budge. The whispers felt closer now, all around me. I pressed my ear to the door and listened. Smoothly, as if rehearsed, the voice came again, clear and firm this time. "Help me." I felt my throat tighten. I couldn't breathe. I pulled at the door with all my strength, and finally, it swung open. I stumbled out, gasping for air. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. I rushed back to the nurse's station, but it was empty. The silence pressed down on me like a weight. That's when I noticed the lights flickering. I turned back toward the hallway expecting to see a figure, but the corridor remained lifeless. My hand trembled as I picked up the phone to call my supervisor. But when I dialed, only static filled the line. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as shadows slithered along the walls. Then I heard the voice again, right behind me. "I need your help." My heart raced, and I spun around. No one was there. Terrified, I ran back down the hall towards room 307, compelled by some instinct I couldn't explain. When I got there, the door stood ajar, and an icy rush of air hit me. I stepped inside once more, and everything shifted. The room was different. The bed was now unmade, and the walls seemed to pulse with a darker energy. My eyes darted around, searching for answers. That's when I saw it, a photograph on the nightstand. There he was, the patient from room 307. But beside him was a figure I didn't recognize. It was a woman with empty eyes, reaching out as if to touch him. My breath caught. I was desperate for more information, but the energy around me felt alive, closing in. I backed out, my mind racing. I needed to make sense of this. But even as I prepared to leave, the door slammed shut again, and that familiar voice whispered, "Stay with me." I felt trapped, caught in the mystery I couldn't escape. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the closed door. "Stay with me" echoed in my mind, the words heavy with an urgency I couldn't ignore. But something inside me screamed to run. I took a step back, ready to bolt, when the air shifted again. It was colder, sharper, almost as if the room were breathing. "Help me." The whisper was close, almost desperate. I gripped the doorknob, pulling it, but it wouldn't budge. In a fit of panic, I kicked the door hard. It rattled but didn't open. I was trapped. My breaths became shallow as I pressed my back against the wall. The shadows clung to the corners like hungry creatures. Then, without warning, the photograph on the nightstand slipped to the ground, shattering the eerie silence. My pulse raced as I bent down to pick it up. As I touched the glass, a jolt of energy coursed through me. I dropped it instantly, heart racing. For a moment, a flash of light surrounded me, and I could see the woman's face clearly. "Who are you?" I shouted into the room, hoping for an answer, but silence settled over me like a suffocating blanket. "Please." The voice was faint, almost a sob now. I could feel the walls closing in on me, squeezing the air from my lungs. I turned to face the door again, slamming my shoulder into it this time. It opened. I stumbled out into the hallway, but not without glancing back at the room. It was dark again, the energy pulling me toward room 307 like a moth to flame. I wanted to know who the woman was and what had happened to my patient. The overwhelming need to solve this mystery had rooted me in place, but common sense said to run. I hesitated, still feeling the pull. The hallway felt distorted and twisted. Lights flickered, casting shadows that writhed at the edges of my vision. Each step I took back toward the nurse's station felt as heavy as lead. I needed to find someone to talk to, but instead, I found myself overwhelmed by the emptiness. As I turned the corner, something moved at the edge of my sight. I whipped around, but there was nothing. My heart thudded in my ears, and I picked up my pace. That's when I saw it, the break room door was ajar. In a desperate attempt to find solace, I rushed inside. The air inside was unnaturally still. I scanned the room, looking for something normal to ground me, but something was off. My eyes caught sight of the coffee machine. It wasn't plugged in, yet it emitted a soft hum. I stepped closer, using my flashlight to inspect it, my hands trembling. "Please, get out of here." The voice came in a low growl from the corner of the break room. I jumped, turning sharply, the beam of my flashlight illuminating a figure standing half-shrouded in darkness. It was a man, his face gaunt and pale, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and urgency. "Get out," he repeated, and I felt the room tighten like a vice around me. I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted back into the hallway, my breath coming out in gasps. I glanced back once, and he was gone, leaving only a cold emptiness in his wake. Whatever was happening here, it was escalating, and I felt the weight of it crashing down on me. I found my footing and glanced at the number plates on the doors lining the hall. Each number looked warped, crooked. As I reached for the wall to steady myself, I felt an unsettling sensation like fingers brushing against my skin. Then it hit me. Room 307 wasn't just a room anymore. It had become a gateway to something larger, something darker. I had to confront it. I turned on my heel and strode toward room 307 again, each step filled with fear and determination. I had to know the truth. As I reached the door, it quietly swung open of its own accord, and I stepped inside, ready to face whatever awaited me. The moment I stepped into room 307, the chill hit me like a wave. A soft light flickered overhead, and the air smelled damp and dusty, as if the room hadn't been used in years. The shadowy corners felt alive, silently watching my every move. I took a cautious step forward, boots creaking against the floor. The bed was unmade, the sheets bunched up like a heap of forgotten memories. I scanned the room, searching for any clues that might explain the woman's face in the photograph, any hint of the man's warning. My eyes fell on a bedside table cluttered with old, yellowed papers. I stepped closer, heart racing, and picked up one of the pages. It was a medical report. The name at the top sent a shiver through me, Sarah Mitchell. The details were concerning diagnosis, treatment plans, and notes about a recent incident. Unexplained episodes of anxiety and agitation. I read the words over and over, my mind racing. That sounded eerily familiar. Suddenly, the lights flickered more violently, casting odd shadows across the walls. I felt a surge of panic clenching my gut. I needed to get out of here, but something told me I couldn't leave yet. I dropped the report and noticed a small notebook lying beneath the bed. I knelt down, extending my hand to retrieve it. The moment my fingers brushed the cover, a wave of dizziness washed over me. I blinked hard, trying to shake off the sensation. Opening the notebook, I flipped through pages filled with frantic scrawls. They were like snippets of a conversation, capturing bits of information but with key details missing. "She can't hear me" was repeated several times, as was "I'll protect her." My fingers trembled as I reached the final page. There, hastily written, was a single name, Elena. My breath quickened. Who was Elena? Was she related to Sarah? The questions swirled in my mind, but before I could think too much, I heard a faint tapping coming from the window as the wind howled outside. My heart lurched. I turned, half expecting to see something waiting for me there, but the window was empty. Just a cold glass pane reflecting the chaos within me. But then I noticed that the reflection in the glass didn't match the room behind me. I could see shadows flitting about, flashes of movement where there shouldn't be any. What is going on? I whispered, voice trembling. As I stepped closer, the noises grew louder, a chorus of whispers merging into a single frantic plea. "Help us!" Tears pricked at my eyes, mingling with fear. I took a step back, bumping into the bedside table. The sudden movement sent a glass jar crashing to the floor, shattering into countless fragments. Then everything went dark. I blinked, momentarily disoriented. The light above flickered out completely, leaving me submerged in shadows. I could feel the walls closing in around me. Panic surged again, but before I could react, I heard another voice, a woman's voice, clear and commanding, cutting through the darkness. "You shouldn't have come here." Every instinct told me to flee, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. I was living in a nightmare I couldn't escape. The only thing I could do was search for answers that seemed to slip further away. And in that suffocating darkness, I realized I was no longer alone. The air thickened, and I took a breath, heart pounding. Something was shifting, and I was about to find out what or who was here with me. I felt a presence shift beside me, breath hitching in my throat. The voice echoed again, this time sounding closer. "Leave while you can." I spun around, heart racing, but the darkness swallowed everything. I strained my eyes, looking for some sign of movement. My pulse thrummed loudly in my ears, drowning out everything else. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. "Not important," the voice replied. It was laced with urgency. "You mustn't stay." Before I could ask more, the air grew colder, and I felt a gust that sent chills up my spine. Then, the darkness seemed to thin for a moment, revealing shapes, figures that flickered in and out of focus, their faces warped in expressions of despair. My heart pounded harder as I took an involuntary step back, colliding with the bedside table again. I needed to find a way out. Panic took hold, stealing my breath. I turned and stumbled toward the door, desperate to escape this nightmare. But the moment I reached for the doorknob, the shadows coiled tighter around me, as if they were alive, holding me back, wrapping cold fingers around my wrists. "Please," I begged. "Let me go." A cold laugh echoed in the air, and I froze. The sound sent a wave of terror through me. "You cannot leave," the voice whispered, transforming into a chorus of hushed tones. "You must listen." Somewhere in the distance, a clock chimed. 1, 2, 3 times. With each chime, the shadows shifted, as if acknowledging the passage of time. Fear clawed at my chest, gripping me tighter. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up from this nightmare. But when I opened them again, I was still in room 307. Then I heard a soft sobbing sound, weak and fragile. It came from a corner of the room, drawing my attention. I stepped closer, compelled by a mix of dread and curiosity. That was when I saw it, a small, intricate wooden box sitting on the floor. It looked out of place, untouched by the dust that covered everything else. I knelt, reaching for the box, its surface smooth beneath my fingers. As I lifted the lid, a faint light glimmered within. Nestled inside was a delicate locket, its surface etched with the name Elena. Recognition hit me like a brick. This was her. The Elena from Sarah's notes. I glanced around, now feeling the weight of the voices pressing in on me. My breath hitched as I recalled the snippets I'd read earlier. There was a connection, something I needed to uncover, but before I could fully grasp it, a sudden crashing noise interrupted my thoughts. I spun around to see the window rattling violently, as if something or someone was desperate to get in. My heart raced as I turned back to the box. I had to find out more about Elena, and I had to find out fast. Then, amidst the chaos, a figure appeared in the broken shadow of the window. My blood ran cold as our eyes met. I stood frozen, realizing I was about to confront whatever darkness had pulled me into this nightmare. "Now you have to choose," the voice said, echoing around the room. "Her or you." The figure in the window shifted, its features obscured by darkness. I wanted to scream, but fear stole my voice. "What do you mean, her or you?" I stammered, my grip tightening on the wooden box. The voice laughed again, though there was no humor in it, just a cold, empty sound that chilled me to the core. "The choice is simple," it replied. "You can take her place, or you can run. But know this, running may not save you." I glanced back at the locket, its surface glinting softly in the dim light. Elena was here, I could feel it. But what had happened to her? Why was she trapped in this cycle of despair? I didn't truly believe I could help her, but the look in her eyes when I glimpsed them in the shadows filled me with a desperate resolve to try. The room felt alive, shadows swirling as if they had an agenda of their own. I took a shaky breath, forcing myself to focus. If I let her go, what happens to me? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Death is not always final, the voice replied. You'll join the others if you choose wrong. The shadows coiled and twisted, a dark carpet ready to consume me whole. I couldn't tell if it was the ridiculous gravity of the situation or the oppressive fear of the unknown, but I felt a pull towards the locket. No, I said firmly, though my heart raced. I won't abandon her. As I slipped the locket from the box, a jolt of energy coursed through me. Suddenly, the room dimmed even more. Shapes seemed to lurch closer, their cries rich with sorrow. I staggered backwards, clutching the locket like a lifeline. Soon, you will understand what it means to be bound, the voice warned. Elena's fate is tied to yours now. With a sudden rush, the window shattered completely, the fragments exploding outwards. Wind rushed in, and for a split second, I thought I saw another figure outside, a woman with despair etched onto her face. Before I could blink, she vanished into the night. This was madness. I needed to regain control. Alone in the darkness, I focused on the locket again. Elena, I'm here, I whispered. I will find you. Abruptly, the shadows surged forward, and the wooden box flipped over with a loud crack. The locket slipped from my fingers, landing softly on the floor. I dove to retrieve it, but the wind howled louder, drowning out my shouts. The shadows twisted violently around me. A rush of cold air forced me to my knees, and a vision overwhelmed me. I saw flashes of Elena's life, laughter, warmth, and then the sudden engulfing darkness. I gasped, clutching my chest as if the sight had physically struck me. Suddenly, the vision stopped, leaving me gasping for breath. I turned back toward the window, where the fragmented glass sparkled like stars against the darkness. That confrontation had changed something. I could feel it. But as I moved toward the opening, a deep voice boomed, "You've made your choice." My heart raced as I looked around. The shadows closed in tightly, leaving no escape. I wasn't safe yet. I had to find another way out and fast. And then, just as I began to plan my next move, a chilling realization struck me: the locket was now gone. The darkness felt heavier without the locket. I scrambled around the floor, my hands searching blindly for it. My mind raced. What if it was gone for good? What if it had been stolen by whatever lurked in the shadows? I fought to stay calm, but panic threatened to overwhelm me. Just then, the chilling voice echoed through the room again. You cannot save her without it. Each word dripped with malice, and I felt its cold breath brushing against my neck. I straightened up, determination surging within me. I needed to find it. It was my only chance to gather the power to help Elena. I scanned the room, my eyes darting to every corner. The shadows shifted, revealing something faintly glimmering near the wall. I darted toward it, only to find it was just a broken shard of glass from the shattered window. Frustrated, I cursed under my breath. Searching for something? The voice taunted, now behind me. I spun around, heart pounding. The shadowy figure stood there, its eyes two glowing embers in the darkness. I could hardly think straight as I fought the urge to flee. What do you want from me? I shouted, trying to command the words despite my faltering courage. Your energy. Your willingness to fight. It fuels the bond, it answered, a twisted glee in its tone. You can have the locket back, but it comes with a price. What kind of price? I breathed, my fear mixing with a desperate curiosity. It's simple. A trade. Your life for hers, it hissed, leaning closer. One soul for another. A bargain most would gladly accept. For a moment, it felt like the walls were closing in on me. The weight of the choice bore down heavily as the vision of Elena flashed again in my mind, her smile, her laughter, her warmth. "I'm not trading my life," I shot back, finding a flicker of resolve. "I've come too far to give up now." The entity laughed, its voice echoing sinister insights. "You will change your mind. You will come to understand the true value of a life you do not own." Before I could argue further, the room suddenly plunged into silence. The shadows contracted as if holding their breath. I felt my heart race in the stillness, but no reply came. It was as if the figure had evaporated into thin air. In that moment of eerie calm, I heard something, the soft sound of movement. I bolted toward the far corner where I had first glimpsed the glimmer. Shadows danced around me as I crouched, my hands scraping against the cold floor. And that's when I felt it, the familiar texture of the locket. With renewed vigor, I yanked the locket from beneath a splintered floorboard. A rush of warmth surged through me, and the shadows seemed to recoil. "Elena!" I whispered, clutching it to my chest. But just as hope filled me, the room began to tremble. The walls shuddered and warped, and I heard the deep voice again, louder this time. "You have awoken the binding. Escape is no longer an option." I felt the panic rise like bile in my throat. I glanced around for an exit, my options dwindling. And then everything went dark. I gasped as the blackness enveloped me, my heart racing. I could feel the locket pressing against my chest, a reminder of my purpose. The trembling walls had stopped, but the oppressive silence was more unnerving than the chaos that had just surrounded me. I blinked, willing my eyes to adjust, but the darkness remained thick, almost tangible. Then I heard it, a low, rhythmic sound echoing in the void, like breathing. It was slow and deliberate, and it set my nerves on edge. I stepped back, my foot brushing against something cold and solid, the edge of a table, maybe. I reached out, trying to orient myself, desperate for a hint of light, a sign that I was still in the same room. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Show yourself." There was a pause, then the breathing intensified, echoing, wrapping around me like a coil. My back hit the wall. I felt trapped. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. Whatever that presence was, it was growing closer. It fed off my fear, gaining strength. "Is this what you wanted?" I shouted into the darkness, defiantly clutching the locket. I won't give in. Instantly, the breathing stopped. I held my breath, staring into the abyss. Was it gone? My pulse thundered in the eerie quiet, and I felt as if the world was teetering on the brink of something unspeakable. Suddenly, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness. I squinted, realizing it was coming from the locket. The surface began to glow softly, illuminating the space around me. The light spread like ripples on a pond, revealing twisted shadows. That's when I saw them, figures lurking in the corners, their features blurred, their presence palpable. They swayed back and forth, almost as if they were waiting. Some had outstretched arms, their hands claw-like, begging for something I could not comprehend. Panic surged again, gnawing at my insides. With my heart pounding in my ears, I focused on the locket, pouring my energy into it. "Elena needs me," I cried, hoping it would connect me to her. My voice echoed into the abyss, and as I did, a cacophony of whispers filled the air, overlapping, frantic, each word spiraling in confusion. Then, in the midst of the chaos, a different voice cut through. It was soft, familiar. "Please, help me. Elena." I whispered, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. The glow grew stronger. The shadows around me began to shift, merging into one figure, a silhouette of a girl. She looked like Elena. I took a step forward. "Elena, I'm here." I reached out, drawn to her, but as I did, the glowing light flickered, and the shadows snapped back into focus. The presence loomed closer, swirling around me, and I realized I was trapped. I had opened the door, and now they were ready to reclaim what they desired. With desperate resolve, I clutched the locket tighter. "No. You won't take her." But even as I said it, I felt the darkness closing in. Bracing myself, I inhaled deeply, trying to gather strength. I knew I had to act fast, before the darkness extinguished the fragile hope I had left. And then, with a surge of energy, the locket pulsed, a blinding light erupting from it, pushing the shadows away. But as the figure of Elena clearly formed before me, another realization crashed down. The price. What had I truly awakened? The blinding light from the locket enveloped me, casting the figures back, but it was fleeting. I could see Elena's face clearly now, her eyes wide with fear and sorrow. "Please," she whispered, "you have to help me before they come back." Her voice brought a surge of hope, but the shadows were still lurking, ready to pounce. "What happened?" I asked, trying to maintain my focus. "Where are we?" "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "I was trying to get away from them but they found me." Before I could respond, the shadows started to reform, growing bolder in the light. I could see the outlines of their twisted shapes, the claw-like hands reaching out, desperate to pull Elena back. Panic bubbled inside me. I had to break this connection. "Stay with me, Elena," I shouted, trying to piece my thoughts together. "Concentrate. Focus on the locket." She nodded, her fear morphing into determination. The light pulsed again, brighter this time, as we both poured our energy into it. I dug deeper into my memories, searching for any tether that would keep us connected. The rhythm of their breathing returned, louder this time, like a storm building. With every second that passed, I felt the energy draining from the locket. I had to do something, anything to drive them away. "I want to let them take you," I yelled. Suddenly, a desperate growl echoed through the air. The shadows were furious now, swirling dangerously close. I felt a deep, instinctual fear creeping in. They were shadows of something terrible, something that shouldn't exist. "You need to tell me what they want," I urged Elena, my heart racing. "We have to break the connection with the locket," she shouted back, her voice filled with urgency. "It's binding us to this place. If we don't." But before she could finish, a dark tendril shot forward, wrapping around my wrist. It felt cold and suffocating, pulling me closer into the depths of shadows. I screamed, trying to yank away, but its grip tightened. My breath quickened, and I could feel the locket's light flaring erratically. "Let go," I gasped, my thoughts swirling in panic. This was all too real. I had to sever the bond. With one last grasp of strength, I reached for the locket. I could feel it thrumming, but the shadows were trying to drown it out. "I'm not leaving you." Elena's voice broke through my haze. "You're stronger than this." In that moment, I recalled the quick memory of my Aunt Ruth's words before she passed: "The heart holds the key." With renewed energy, I glanced down at the locket. It was more than just a piece of jewelry, it was a link to the love and hope I had. I wasn't just fighting for Elena, I was fighting for us both. For every breath we took, with determination, I concentrated all my thoughts into the locket, as if I could channel the love I felt for Elena, casting it outward into the abyss. "We are not yours. We are free. Break this bond." The locket erupted into brilliant light, and the shadowy tendrils recoiled, hissing in agony. I had never felt power like this before. The darkness whirled around, now desperate, and in that moment, I understood I was not just a pawn. A sudden shift occurred. The shadows started to unravel, flickering like dying embers. But before I could celebrate, I realized some shards were breaking off and morphing into smaller shapes. Ghostly faces emerged, their mouths open in silent screams, their eyes hollow. "More of them," I gasped, dread creeping back in. I hadn't just awakened the darkness, I had set something loose that could haunt me forever. As the new figures moved closer, I felt fear tighten around my chest. I needed to escape before they trapped me in their despair, but I was running out of time. The night was far from over, and it had just begun to reveal its darkest secrets. The chaos around me intensified as the shadows writhed, desperate to reclaim me. The locket's light shimmered fiercely, holding them at bay, but I could feel the power waning, my strength slipping. "You can't hold us back forever," hissed the coiling darkness that I was lightheaded, each breath feeling like a weight on my chest. "What do you want?" I shouted into the darkness, hoping to hear something that could give me clarity. But the only response was a cacophony of whispers swirling around, each voice pleading for release, all edging me toward the brink of terror. Suddenly, I felt a sharp tug, the shadows darted closer, their claw-like fingers stretching toward me. My vision blurred momentarily. I clutched the locket tighter, remembering the faces I had seen in the shadows, their desperate expressions burned into my mind. "Elena!" I called, feeling both their presence and my own spirit lifting in shared determination. I had to free her. I had to face whatever bound us. "Together," I whispered, looking at the ghostly silhouette of Elena radiating courage. "We find a way out." As our energy surged anew, the locket pulsed, casting illuminating beams into the churning shadows. The brightness pierced through their body, illuminating wretched faces, lost souls trapped in time. They screamed, and the sound permeated my core like ice. This was more than just a problem I needed to solve, it was an entire world wrapped in tragedy that I focused, remembering moments of friendship and laughter, envisioning Elena's smile, the warmth we had amidst suffering. My heart beat in sync with the locket's glow, a rhythm of hope that shot through the darkness. "We choose life," I shouted, voice trembling but resolute. The shadows screeched as their forms flickered, retreating from the light. An image pierced through the chaos, a vision of the hospital, my peers and patients, the light and hope found even in the darkest corners of healing. "We're not afraid of you. We don't belong here." I yelled that in a burst of determination. I took a step forward. "Listen. You have to let us go." I could feel a connection surging, far beyond the physical realm, breaking through the despair. "Elena, focus on what you want, the warmth of life, the hugs, the days still to be spent." The locket flickered, a beacon of possibility, and then, amidst the swirling darkness, something shifted. The shadows began to teeter, looking less defined, more like smoke than solid form. I sensed their restless energy fading as their grip weakened. "Believe in the strength of love," I pleaded. Elena stepped forward, her essence growing stronger as the locket's glow brightened to a blinding light the moment we made eye contact. "I want to be free. I want to live," she shouted. A deafening roar emanated from the shadows, a mix of fury and panic, as they were engulfed by the radiant energy. It radiated outward, filling every corner of the room with light. "Stay with me, Elena," I called, grabbing her ethereal hand. In that fraction of time, we were bound, and I felt an overwhelming sense of rightness. The darkness writhed and twisted, clawing for purchase, but the locket's light carved through it, tearing apart the inky depths that had taken hold of Elena. A blinding flash erupted, illuminating everything, forcing shadows to dissolve. As the warmth enveloped us, I felt weightless, the icy grips loosening until I caught sight of the room around us shifting. "Release!" I cried, refusing to succumb when I had come so far. The radiant energy pulsed through me, strengthening. "You are not in power here." Every shadow screamed as they disintegrated, fading from existence, and in that moment, as the last remnants dissolved, a ringing silence filled the air. I felt a surge, a rush of safety washing over me, carrying with it a promise of dawn of life and a chance at a new beginning, and when the light began to fade, I blinked rapidly, finding myself back in room 307, a place once filled with despair, now a sanctuary of hope. I gasped, breath coming in quick bursts, and glanced around. The room was unchanged yet filled with an unmistakable lightness. The darkness had lifted, leaving only the empty space behind. "Elena?" I whispered, half afraid to believe. That moment, the door creaked open, revealing my colleague, alarm visible on her face, as she rushed through, checked her surroundings, then turned to me, relief flooding her features. "What happened?" "We heard the commotion. Are you okay?" I nodded, still disoriented but alive. I think we're free." Free. Her confusion was palpable, but I could see concern in her eyes. I wanted to share the full weight of my experience, but the details felt tangled, mixed with realization and disbelief. Before I could say anything, a sound caught my attention, the soft thrum of voices lingering in memory. They danced at the edge of my mind, haunting yet nearly harmonious. As we walked out together, the weight of the night pressed at the edges of thought. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything wasn't entirely finished, like a lingering echo refusing to be silenced, but with each step away from room 307, I knew life would go on, that I might never understand the depths of what had happened, but I felt a stillness wrapping around the night, a reminder that though the dark could be all-consuming, light always returned, and sometimes, what you believe to be lost may just be waiting to be found once again.